I know why you killed Joel. He did what he did to save me. I'm the one that you want. Just let him go.
I let you live. And you wasted it.
Happy finale to you all. Welcome back to tonight's discussion, live discussion, which is being edited to what you are seeing now for episode 7, the season finale of The Last of Us. And for some people, maybe the series finale, because man, we got a lot to discuss. Before we get into the discussion for this edited version, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listen to it on Apple or Spotify, do me a favor. If you enjoy the conversation, hit the like button, share the video, share the audio, subscribe to the channel, follow the podcast formats on Apple and Spotify. I would appreciate that. So tonight's episode was a doozy. I'll be honest. We'll break it down. We'll try to find some positives, but I'll be upfront with you all. This was not a good episode of television. And then when you add into the fact that this is a finale of a story that's been so inconsistent, a story that's been kind of handled poorly, in my opinion, as I've expressed the last 4 weeks. Episodes 1 and 2. Episode 1 came out the gate a little stagnant for a premiere, but sets things up. Episode 2, as we all know, was the shocking episode. A lot of emotions through that episode with the death of Joel, and obviously the war and everything going on, battle for Jackson. Episode 3 was a bit of a grieving episode, stepping back and reflecting off of the big loss. And then episode 4 and 5 came around. And again, I'm not going to rehash my thoughts about those episodes. You can see my thoughts that's available to check out, but wasn't a fan of how they handle some of the narrative and some of the lack of priority of why Dena and Ellie were in Seattle and how that storyline was handled. And of course there were moments we met Isaac, we get to Spores. Episode 6 comes around, which was last week's episode, emotionally satisfying, getting that flashback sequences with Joel. And now we're here. And if you couldn't tell, again, from my episode 1 thoughts kind of meandering, episode 2, episode 3 can understand, episode 4, 5, 6, and 7. It's been a roller coaster of a season, and not one that I would say was enjoyable for the most part. What I mentioned with 2 episodes out of 7, which is another issue that why do we, what is this, Disney Plus 7 episode seasons after almost 2.5 years of being off of the air. Let's get into it. Let's just get into this discussion, starting off with our opening sequence here. We open this episode with obviously seeing the aftermath of Dena getting shot in the leg and her being afraid to hit an artery. And, as the conversations happening between her and Jesse, which, by the way, this is their first time seeing each other in a few days. There's obviously some concern on his part. There's some animosity and nervousness on Dena's part because of the baby of it all. And in this scene, she and Jesse brings this up later on in the episode about the way she worded, "I can't die." Right now, not like I'm afraid to die. I can't die.
I got you. I got you.
I guess my thing with the do not tell, won't tell situation between why Dena wouldn't tell him in the situation of what's going on with him being a father to her child. I'm trying to. I guess there's a time and a place, but I would think this is the time and the place if she's fearful for maybe, hitting the artery, maybe bleeding out. Maybe this is the last time they're going to speak with each other. And maybe there needs to be a better sense of urgency of how he needs to be more attentive to her wounds because she is pregnant with not just any child, but his child. So I am kind of confused on why Dena has not told him at this point that there is a child at risk. If she loses her life, there's 2 lives at risk. I am a little bit taken aback by that. I'm trying to wrap my head. Again, I know these are trying times. There's infected, there's Seraphites, there's wolves. She's concerned about her girlfriend and concerned about Tommy and it's a lot going on in Dena's head. But I would think the number one priority would be the concern and the safety of my child. But as we've seen so far, I don't know if the safety of the child is a priority just based on the fact that she's she's out of Jackson and Seattle and risking a lot for Ellie. So yeah, I'm a little upset with Dena. It's been a character that I've been very much a fan of. I've loved the portrayal by Isabel, and I think another thing that kind of gets under my my skin with this whole not telling Jesse is I really do feel bad for Jesse in this scenario, in this whole situation at hand. I feel even worse for what happens to him at the end of this episode, and it just feels like a underused character in many ways. But we'll get to that part. But I wasn't a fan of, again, that lack of information that was given him. Now, of course, again, we know he knows, but it would have been, to me, mature of Dena to tell him in that moment. But again, that didn't happen. We go on from here. We see Ellie has made her way back to the theater, and she's checking on Dena, who is, she's going to live, she's going to survive. The conversation that we have in this scene, obviously, there's a conversation I think was needed for sure, but a conversation I think was a little late for me. Let's set up the scene. So she comes in, she checks on Dena. She tells her what happened at the hospital with Nora, that she died, right? She punished her. She beat her up with the pipe to get a little information from her about, obviously, Abby. And she mentions two words, which was well or will. She didn't know what it meant, but obviously we find out what that meant later. She didn't hit her with the final blows to actually kill Nora, but it was, she was beaten down enough, and obviously the exposure to the spores was going to kill her. And we see a little sequence of, we flash back to it a little bit, just to kind of when Ellie's expressing to Dena that she didn't feel remorse in the punishment she was displaying on Nora, and she kind of felt a little separated from herself as an individual with this willingness to invoke violence on someone that's invoked. It's a circle of violence. Yeah, obviously, that's a big theme of this particular story, this chapter 2.
I thought it would be harder to do, but it wasn't. It was easy.
So I get all that. But I guess, is it too much to ask for maybe it is too much to ask for, but I would assume that they would have opened this episode, or at least maybe when we see Dena's been patched up, we cut back to the scene between Ellie and Nora in the will scene and the confusion of what she said, and we see her pass away, and we see how Ellie gets out of that situation. Because the last time, and this might be me, last time we saw Ellie at the hospital, she was being shot at by the wolves, who were well aware that there's an intruder in their facility. She was able to make it out unscathed and alive, and we didn't see any of that. That's all off screen. We're just assuming, which is not good storytelling, just assuming that she, obviously she made it out okay, because she wouldn't be here. But that seemed like a missed opportunity for me to not show that. Again, Nora's death, the lifelessness behind Ellie's eyes of watching someone die basically at the palm of her hands, and she's the cause of Nora's death. We didn't see all that. I think that's a missed opportunity, another missed opportunity. That's 0 for 2 for me so far. The lack of conversation between Jesse and Dena, revealing that she's pregnant and that he's the father. Ellie making it out of the hospital, making it back to the theater, challenged by the wolves and fights. And in fact, it's just a pretty easy thing to do, I guess. But either way, we have the conversation that I think should have been had back in episode 4, at least at the beginning of episode 5, and that is, how is Ellie immune? It's in this moment that, after potentially thinking that she was going to lose Dena, Ellie confesses what happened in Utah. Try to touch on some of the positives here, and I will, try to navigate the positives here. But, from a performance standpoint, Isabela Merced, the way that she receives that information was devastating for her, right? Because it shifts the whole perspective of this mission and this idea of the story she shared with Ellie in episode 5 about seeing her mom and sister die in front of her, and she had that satisfying killing the guy that was responsible for her death, but knowing how Ellie could have felt not knowing why this person killed Joel, and having that kind of in the back of her mind, and that haunting her. But now hearing from Ellie that wasn't the case. She knew what Joel did in Utah. She knew why Abby did what she did, but yet she still pushed forward for this mission that now not only compromises Dena, but Ellie, but now you got Tommy in the mix. You got Jesse in the mix, and you got a baby in the mix. So that bit of information is a game changer. And as we can see, again, I will give it props to when props are due. Isabela Merced has been a home run for the majority of this season. She's really carried a lot, if I'm being honest, of the Seattle plot. She's been the driving force of this plot. So just looking at the pain in her eyes, the frustration, the confusion, the hatred, let's call it what it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure she's pretty pissed at Ellie at this point. And I'm making parallels to the moment on the porch with Ellie and Joel confessing what happened in Seattle. You guys can remember the look of that disappointment and confusion that Ellie had. I mean, we're practically seeing a similar reaction from Dena here. You're not giving me all the information that could have swayed her decision to go to Seattle or not. So, like I said, I'll give them the props for that, and I'll give Isabel the props for that. And narratively speaking, this changes their relationship moving forward. There's a level of dishonesty, or I guess you can call it dishonesty, because she didn't. Would you call it a lie, or she withdrew that information from her? So, but either way, like I said, narratively speaking, it does set up this tension between the two. And it even adds more fuel to this tension after what happens to Jesse. So we move forward to the next day. And this is day 3 of the Seattle journey. On day 3, we have, Dena's recovering. Tommy's still out there. Unknown. Is he alive or dead? I don't want to pick sides, but I'm just being honest. I'm 100% down from Jesse's perspective. And if I'm being honest, I think narratively, as an audience member, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the writers and the way the story's being told, I think you're supposed to feel for Jesse in a sense of like, yeah, I would be pissed, I would be upset, I would be kind of short with my responses to Ellie, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. Again, an opportune time. Thought this would have been an appropriate time to bring it up yet again, that she's pregnant, and there's stakes at hand. Again, knowing that Jesse knows, but again, they don't know that Jesse knows at this point, especially Dena. But there's a tension there. There's an understanding that there is there's something being not spoken about, and again, you can feel the tension in the room. And unfortunately, if we're, I guess, thinking about it, is this the last time that Jesse is going to see Dena? If I'm not mistaken, as far as just narratively speaking, I think this is the last time that at least the 3 of them is in one room together. And I think this is the last time that Jesse, because we don't know what Jesse did after and we'll talk about it with him and Ellie go their separate ways, but I think this is the last time that they're in a room together, which is kind of unfortunate that she didn't get the true opportunity to tell him that she's pregnant and that he's the father. Tina's back at the theater. She's recuperating. She's recovering. Barricade the door. We're going to find Tommy. We'll be back as soon as possible. I am glad that Ellie at least acknowledged, she thanked him for coming, because if it wasn't for Jesse, she would be dead. Both of them would be dead. And I'm referring to Dena and Ellie. He's just like, what happened back at the hospital? She's not telling him, and he reveals how he was able to find them at the theater. He knows what's up.
I'm not stupid and I'm not blind. Ellie, I see the way you two look at each other. It's different now. Yeah, and I bet she even tells you things she wouldn't tell me.
But then he brings up the way that Dena phrased her not dying the night before, and the way she phrased it was obviously she's not fighting for just her life, but the life of someone else, and that's their child, and he obviously understands that that's his child, and his number one priority here on out, even though this was probably his number one priority anyway, was probably Dena, but even more so is not only Dena, but protecting his child. And again, if I'm being honest, man, and again, this is maybe where my video game enthusiasts come into play and fill me in, but I feel like this whole build up of Jesse, I think the performance was good, but I just feel like there was more scenes with Jesse. There could have been more to been had with Jesse to really build up the character, to really build the relationship between Dena, but also, we started the season with him and Ellie and kind of get to understand that they have a friendship and whatnot. And I love that the show never made him to be out like a, stereotypical guy that probably acts out of, anger because his girl left him for another girl and what have you. I'm glad they didn't go that route, but there were, the YA vibes were definitely strong in the season between the love triangle. But again, going back to my thoughts, I just wish there was more time to spend with Jesse. And I blame the 7 episodes on that. I blame the structuring of this season, the way that they, dedicated time on certain things that just didn't really feel fulfilled. Performances in this show are carrying this show. It's really unfortunate that you don't have, and this is just my opinion, that the actors have to surpass the writing because they're going beyond the words on the page. Luckily, we have people that are able to elevate their characters, even though they're not getting the backup from the writers. Because, man, if you really think about it, we got what, like a handful of like meaty scenes with Jesse. There wasn't a lot to pick from this season. But again, the way the actor plays it, whether the way he carries himself, the way he speaks about certain things, you can tell that there's history in the way he conveys himself and the way he delivers his lines. And the same goes for, Dena and Ellie and all the actors. To me, elevate. Shout out to the acting, man, because they weren't given any favors. We have Jesse, we have Dena, again, looking for Tommy. They come across, they hear some gunshots, they hide behind a garbage can, and they see wolves circling down, chasing down a Seraphite, and he appears to be a young man. A little frustrating, not little, but more than a little. This is definitely frustrating. Ellie wants to be the hero and save this kid. Just wants to jump behind the trash can and take on these wolves, these 6 wolves, not knowing if they have backup and more people behind them. In her mind, she sees, I'm trying to make sense of her reaction to this. Maybe she sees a version of herself, sense of like, this is a young man being chased down, his life is on the line. It's going to be, she obviously is aware of this beef between the Seraphites and the wolves, and she's taking out the fact that this Seraphite that's been chased down is a part of this terrible group that murders men, women, and children. But I think she's kind of putting that to the side because she sees a version of herself to when she was a child. She sees that level of vulnerability, and if someone was in her position to save her, then she should be able to pay it forward, or I guess. I don't know. Because I'm just so confused with the narrative they're trying to tell with Ellie. At the beginning of the episode, she talks about how she was almost a shell of herself when she was harming Nora, almost like she was leaning into the violence, and she didn't have that level of remorse or that level of humanity is kind of escaping her. But then to fast forward to have her having this sympathy for this person she doesn't know, the one thing she does know is this person is a part of a group that murders people. I don't know. It's kind of a weird narrative that I'm, as you can see in real time, I'm trying to. But Jesse speaks sense to her, like, listen, your moral compass, cool, that's good for you to have, but this isn't the time and the place. We can't save everyone, and especially people that murder people.
I am not dying out here. Not for any of them. This is not our war.
Let me know what you all thought about Ellie, how you all interpreted that scene and why she was so upset with Jesse, and also how she was willing to, compromise them in a situation. We cut to this scene here. Again, this episode is just like a ping pong. We're back and forth with just not a lot of subtext. Just things are happening. We're in the middle of this war that I don't fully understand the why. And I understand it's probably purposeful, and we'll learn further events as the show goes on. Conversation at hand. We have the character we met in episode 4 who lost her son to the spores, and she made the decision of sacrificing her son and his crew to not expose the rest of the wolves to the spores. Again, she's talking to Isaac, and the conversation's at hand about preparation for this oncoming war. And the confidence that Isaac displayed when we first met him, when he killed that Seraphite in the kitchen, he made it seem like we have armies on armies. You guys are not anywhere near a threat to us. But secretly, I guess the Seraphite was right. It's like, yeah, you might have the numbers, but we have the people that's really willing to die for what they believe in, and we've even converted some of your people. So it's just a matter of time before if we can withstand some of your onslaught and survive these drawn out wars. It's just a matter of time before we have the numbers, right? And he pretty much says that to this character that he's in a scene with, that it's just you're gonna probably die, I'm gonna die, and he said tomorrow, which I don't know if he's a prophet. I don't know how he knows that. Anyway, he says to her, there's a importance about Abby. Where's Abby? See, we know Abby's a key character for the overall story with the connection with Joel and Ellie, but what's the importance of Abby to the context of the wolves and Isaac? Well, Isaac tells her and tells us, the audience, that Abby's important because she is the second in command. She's going to be taking up the mantle. Once I'm gone, she's going to continue our legacy and continue the wolves. Let me make myself big here. I'm sorry, what? Who? Abby's the leader of the wolves now? She's been the second in command this whole time. Why are we just finding this out now? Oh, that's right, because we haven't seen Abby in 6 weeks. What? So Abby's important to this mission, or important to the wolves, because she's supposed to take over, because apparently Isaac and his team and his crew and the majority of the wolves are going to die the next day. So, okay. Why surround us with so much secrecy, so much mystery? Again, I understand this is a show. You gotta tease your audience. You gotta make them come back to understand the context. But it's just like, and again, they wrote this 2-3 years ago. They shot this over a year ago. You can't, they're not obviously editing these episodes week by week. They can't change things based on the reception in real time as we're watching the story unfold. But I don't know. Maybe they thought they were cooking. They were cooking with gas. They're like, ooh, they gonna be chewing this up. They're gonna be sitting at home wondering what's going on. Why is Abby, it's just like, nah, that intrigue is not exciting for me, because the way it's been handled thus far has been so clunky and so inconsistent, and just things are just happening just for the sake of happening. And again, I know this is based on a obviously the video game. I am so curious to know if the way that this structuring of this story has been told, that is told this way in a video game. And I know the video game does, like, you're playing it in real time, you're getting flashbacks of filling in a blank, which obviously, when you're playing a game, that storytelling method can be digestible, I guess is the word I'm looking for, because you're playing the game, you're in the game, and cutscenes. So I understand the way you can tell a story in that narrative. But when you're telling a structured television series in a 7-episode format, I don't know if the way that they're giving us these little bits of information, I don't think it's enough information to feel fulfilled. These little breadcrumbs aren't fulfilling, for me at least. You haven't led anything to that. And also, too, the idea of Abby being second in command, maybe I missed this, or maybe I'm misinterpreting this or misunderstood this, but I was led to believe that the last 5 years, Abby's been kind of in and out of the wolves. Like, she's been so gun-ho on killing Joel that she's been not following orders from Isaac and the wolves, and she's been solo with her little crew, Owen and Noah, or Nora, and Mel, and I don't know, Manny. I was under the impression that she's been, like I said, doing her own thing against Isaac's orders. So I don't know, I would think that Isaac would not want someone that's so committed to her own missions, that he would want her to lead this legacy, because she can go off and do her own thing and not be so down for the cause. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me. And even though the woman in the scene brings up, are you in love with her? Do you have like a romantic relationship? Like, why is she so important? Again, if she is so important to the cause and to the mission, shouldn't she know that she's the next in command? Shouldn't she know that Abby is so important to this crew? Like, shouldn't that be like that everyone shows respect to Abby because she is looked at and so, I don't know, revered by Isaac? Like, I don't know. This doesn't make sense to me at all. The way that they're handling this importance of Abby and her being so key to the Wolves' legacy. I don't know. That again, this is just another example of a scene that just feels out of context, because again, this episode felt so focused on next season more so than the story they were telling now. Ellie and Jesse, and I think the show is using these little check-ins to give the audience, to build us up to the moment of what's going to happen later, right? Instead of spending previous episodes on building the character Jesse, we're just going to jam it into this last episode and give you little cutscenes, 2-minute, 3-minute conversations between Ellie and Jesse to build that level of sympathy, to build that level of connection to the character. Again, I like Jesse for the little bit that we have been given with him, but again, I know you can't, obviously hindsight 2020, but could you imagine how much more impactful Jesse's death, which again, the way that was even handled was just so like, well, what we'll get to the execution, pun intended, a little bit later. But these little moments here are to inform us as an audience that Jesse's a good guy, right? He's, I should have got the book because I'm going to be a father now. And, I was raised in Jackson, and I was always raised to care for others more than myself, to prioritize one's life over my own life. Just a moral understanding that Jesse's a good guy. Again, it's kind of cheap to me, the way that they're throwing in these moments of building, currency with the audience, building good faith, goodwill with the audience to make us care for a character that they're going to ultimately kill in such a, quick manner. But as the conversation continues between these two, they're now, they're hearing on a walkie-talkie that, it appears that Tommy has some of the wolves pinned down, that he's, they're calling for backup, but he's able to hold his own, which, by the way, I'm just going to say this now. Again, I talked about the knowledge that I knew about the game prior to going into this season without having played the game. But one of the things that they have diverted from the video game was the fact that Tommy was the one in the room with Joel when he died, and not Dena. And in the video game, from what I understand, with him being in there with the death of his brother, this put Tommy, again, speaking to the video game, this put Tommy on this path of bloodthirst. Like, apparently he's in the game, Tommy, he goes to Seattle before Dena and Ellie go to Seattle, and Jesse. And apparently he's capping fools left and right, which makes sense to me. But obviously they went a different route because, and again, I don't know if he had the child with Maria in the game, and maybe the reason they changed that up is because he's, a family man. He wants to protect. He's more of the leader of Jackson, so they didn't want to, I guess, compromise him in this second telling of the show. I don't know why they switched. They made that switch and making him more sympathetic to what happened to his brother and not really have that hatefulness and vengefulness and revenge that, from what I understand, is coming from the game. Down two paths. They understand that Tommy is under, he's holding down the fort for now, but it's just a matter of time before the reinforcements come. So Jesse suggests that we go follow the gunshots, and it's not confirmed that he's there, but it's a pretty good chance that that's Tommy that they can go help and save and go back home. Ellie has other plans. She sees a Ferris wheel in the foreground and puts two and two together. Oh, she didn't say well, she said wheel, and well, the way the writing happens, let me put two and two together. She must have meant the Ferris wheel, which again, I don't know why they didn't just show us that scene, but it's just like, why would that be her final two words? And why would she reveal that to her if she's dying? I don't know, that doesn't make sense now I'm thinking about it. Why would Nora give her that information if she knew she was going to die anyway? That makes no sense. But she figures out she needs to go to the Ferris wheel, and she's like, forget Tommy, forget Dena, forget you, Jesse. I need to kill Abby. Mission all of a sudden is the priority. And I'm being sarcastic, because episode 4 or 5, you wouldn't even known that Ellie knew who Joel was the way she was acting. More concerned about being a father than getting revenge on the father she had that was killed in front of her. But that's the past. We'll leave that in the past. But she wants to go down with this mission, and the word community comes up, and I guess there's this ideology of how he views his community is more important than her mission. His community is more important than Joel, and in Ellie's eyes, her community was Joel. Again, go back to episode 4 and 5. That wasn't the case. But anyway, she decides that she's going to go to the Ferris wheel, and assuming, again, She tells Jesse, "You're assuming that that's Tommy. We don't know that, but you're assuming the wheel thing was what she was referring to. So you're going to go that route." I don't know, make it make sense narratively and writing wise. But anyway, two wrongs don't make a right. He's going to go. He wishes her the best of luck. He's going to go save Tommy because, again, I remind you, Ellie, Tommy, Jesse risked their lives to come save you. And yeah, anyway, she decides to go that route. He's going to go his route. But if you can't tell, I'm a bit frustrated. And again, I understand that most of this is meant to be purposeful. At this point in the story, we are supposed to be, as an audience member, upset with the decisions being made by our main character. You know, it is a tough thing. It's a challenging thing to have the audience, you know, push against their hero, push against the lead of the show. It's a tough thing to put your audience in, right? It's a tough thing to navigate, to balance, to make it so that you don't, how do I put this? There's so many different stories where it is meant to be tough for you to be on board with your lead of the show, the hero of the show. But there's a way to go about it where it doesn't feel like it's fundamentally compromising the character's capabilities and going against what we've known of the character. And what I'm getting at here is the way that the character has been handled and has been written so far. The decisions being made just comes off dumb. Doesn't come off like she's leading with anger. She's leading with vengefulness. She's leading with hate, but it's just coming off dumb. You know, at this point, the episode concludes this very mediocre finale. It is now nighttime, and Ellie's getting closer and closer to the Ferris wheel, and she sees two people walking on the boardwalk, and she has her gun out, and I guess she's assuming one of them might be Abby, even though she can't confirm this, but she's about to take the shot, but then Isaac and his crew come up, and she sees a boat. She gets on the boat, and giving credit where credit is due. You know, the show, you know, even though I feel like they shortchanged us with the episode count and only 7 episodes, but production has always been a pillar of the show. The look, the design, the tangibleness of the show, and just how they really kind of put you in the character's shoes, right? And when they're in peril. And man, I tell you, I don't have a good screen grab of it because it's just so dark. But the scene in which Ellie is crossing that water to get to the Ferris wheel and the water's clashing, the thunder, that looked good. That looked really good. Fortunately, that visual, being impressed by the visuals, doesn't hold that much weight because, my goodness, I have no idea what the purpose of this moment that follows what she does. This to me made no sense. So in the middle of the storm, Ellie makes it across, the waves. Nothing's going to take Ellie out. She can't be bitten. She can't be shot. She can't be, she's good. Titanic can't take her out. No wave, no water, no nothing. On shore, she sees this little kid. Little kid sees her, warns the crew, rest of the Seraphites, that there's an intruder on the island. And man, I really don't know the purpose of this scene. Her legs are now broken, or not. She's not able to use her legs. She's crawling on the sand, on the shore. Her gun doesn't work anymore. Her instincts of survival is broken. They take her. They begin to hang her. They tie her neck up, anger, and there's a disturbance in the force. There's something going on in the village. Again, I'm assuming that goes back to what was in those crates, was bombs, missiles, explosions that Isaac had. And I don't know if they took out their own lives in order to kill the Seraph. I don't know. We'll find out in 2039. But anyway, before the explosion goes off, they understand there's a situation going on in the village. So they say, hey, you know what? You're the lead of this show, so no way we're gonna kill you. Cut her down. You got bigger fish to fry. And Ellie proceeds to run away, go on the same boat. Her legs are, by the way, her legs are working. Can't forget that her legs are now working. She runs back to the boat. She gets on the boat, and as she's driving away, explosions. So yeah, what was the point of that scene? Was the it's to show us that Ellie cannot be killed, no matter what. Luck is on her side. X-Men fans, Domino, y'all remember Domino, played by Zazie Beetz in Deadpool 2, how she can, Domino had her immune abilities was like this sense of being lucky, extremely lucky. So I didn't know we were gonna get a crossover. I didn't know the Domino's abilities transferred to Ellie, whose superpower is to avoid death at any cost. She defeats death at any corner. She brings death to others, but she's immune to death. That's her superpower. Makes it off the island, and she is able to find the base that Abby's at. Again, if there's one thing we know about Seattle, is that very similar to the video game, I'm assuming. When you play the game Last of Us, you have your map. As the user, you can see the maps, you know where you're going. I'm assuming that they do this in the game or in the we don't know it, but the show, all the characters know exactly where things are, right? Jesse and Tommy knew exactly how to find a theater. They said that their lives was at risk, but they made it okay there. Also, Abby was able to find a theater pretty easily because, again, if you think about the video game, there's like normally, depending on the level you're playing at, like they give you like hints, like, oh, you need to go here. It's like little arrows, and the map tells you exactly where you go. So again, using that understanding of how the video game is used, apply that logic to this show. She knew exactly where to find Abby at this, hideout. The map. I just told you why she was able to find them. The map, the built-in map. She finds them, and we see Owen and Mel, I think, are the characters' names. Haven't seen them since episode 2. It would have been nice to maybe check in with them periodically throughout this season. Would have been nice to maybe know that she was pregnant, but shock value. Got to get that for the viewership. Ellie finds them holding a gun like it's a water gun. And prior to her catching up to them or interrupting their conversation, again, we're given these crumbs of information. There's a conversation about, we're not going with Isaac.
You have a choice, and so do I. And I'm choosing no also because it's Abby.
Fine, I'll do it on my own, like always.
I'm assuming, I don't know if this is like, I don't know if Mel and, I think these are the characters' name. Again, Sally and Sue at this point, because we barely have met these characters because they just been little cameos at this point. It could be Roger and Sydney. Mel and Owen, I think they are supposed to represent possibly the Dena and Jesse in the situation. I don't know. Like, is he the father of the child that Mel is having? Did he leave her for Abby? Because he seems to be like gun ho and following Abby wherever she goes. And I think in the lore, I think Owen and Abby used to be a thing from what I've gathered from what I heard about the video game. I could be wrong. Ellie interrupts the conversation, gun in hand. Owen decides, again, I think he's the father. Very clumsily and it just goes to show you that none of these people are like, really that capable in matters of survival. He grabs the gun, he shoots like he's a new recruit for the Star, from Star Wars. Shoots at Ellie, misses her, and she, being the John Wick of a marksman that she is, she kills 2 birds with 1 stone, literally. She shoots Owen, he's dead, and then the bullet nicks her in the neck. So much so that it causes her to ultimately die. Now, before she dies, there's a realization that this is essentially in another universe, in a multiverse situation. This is Dena, and lo and behold, the girl's pregnant. Shocker to me. This was shocking. I did not know this about the game. This is pretty crazy because, again, I think that it parallels the situation with in another world, another situation. What if this was Jesse? What if this was Ellie and Dena? Someone had them at gunpoint, and Dena is losing her life, but also the baby's losing life. So that was interesting how that all played out. I did not anticipate that to happen. That's probably the most shocking element of this episode. Well, before we'll talk about something else that happens that I did not anticipate. But he has this level of sympathy from she's pregnant. She's trying to help her. She dies, man. I did not anticipate that. That is pretty messed up. Ellie is responsible for the death of not only this Owen character who was seamlessly protecting him and his family, his community at the hands of Ellie, and she kills his pregnant mom. Man, that's a tough pill to swallow as an audience member. Again, challenge. Again, I'm giving credit where credit is due. That's a challenging thing to put your audience in to make you. I mean, hell, at this point in the story, do we want? I know this might sound blasphemy, but and maybe I'm just saying this because I'm not that invested in the story as much as I was 5 weeks ago. But do you all still want Abby to get killed by Ellie? Because I mean, at this point, Ellie's caused more harm than Abby has. If we're being honest, like if you think about how many bodies are responsible how many people are dead because of Ellie, Nora, Mel, Owen, technically Jesse, because if they weren't there, Jesse would still be alive. So I mean, at this point, again, I'm speaking. I'm talking in both sides of the mindset, right? I mean, of course, I want Ellie to get a revenge on what Abby did to Joel, but again, I'm thinking of the other side of the shoe, which again, apparently, season 3 is going to elaborate on this more. Is Abby's point of view? But if I was Abby, and if I don't know, I'm sure that there are audience people or video game players that actually maybe sympathize with Abby at a certain point in the game, but I'm just being honest with you all. At this point in the show, I don't even know if I care if she gets revenge for Joel's death, because it's just like she's killed so many people in doing so, and the way she's done it, maybe I would feel a certain way if it was more definitive, maybe, because it's been purely accidental. The fact that Nora went down that elevator to B2, B3, where the spores were, Ellie didn't plan it out, and she beat her with the bike. She didn't even technically kill her. She's the reason she died, but she didn't end her life. It's indirectly she did, but not purposefully. Same thing with this Owen. I mean, it was self-defense, but it wasn't like she should have just boom. If she was really about it, she would just kill them. She would have shot both of them in the leg to get the information she needed, but she was hesitant. She didn't want to kill them. We know that. Which again, I might be speaking out of my neck and speaking out of terms, but I am to understand that Ellie at this point in the story in the video game is pretty much dead inside. She has, at this point in the game, her and Dena have gotten many bodies under their name, that they've killed plenty of people, whether in self-defense or part of their mission out of vengeance. So I don't know, man. I don't know if you guys feel the same, or if you guys, again, part of me is like, yes, I want her to get her revenge, yada, yada, yada. But I don't know if the story has earned that for me in my mind, for her to continue to go on this path of vengeance, because it's been so, it doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't feel purposeful. About the maps earlier and how people are just spawning up. Literally, this was the most video game episode of the season, of the series, if you ask me. But Tommy and Jesse, like I said, they just spawn out of nowhere. They took an Uber or a helicopter to find where Ellie was. And I'm assuming they were able to find her because earlier in the episode, Jesse, obviously, she said Ferris wheel, and she pretty much let him know where she was headed. So I'm assuming he put 2 and 2 together and headed that way. But again, was thinking to myself, Jesse went to go find, which by the way, we didn't get that scene. Would have been nice to see that maybe, but Jesse saved Tommy. Jesse tells Tommy, we need to go get Ellie. She's at the Ferris wheel. We end this episode with them found Ellie. They're now back at the theater. And Ellie's obviously a different person now. She's responsible for the death of a pregnant woman. I was thinking, like, man, this is going to be heavy on Ellie's heart, man. This is really going to mess her up. But no, it doesn't seem to be bothering her right now. She's kind of moved on. I think Jesse said, Tommy says they made their bed. They got to lie in it. Isn't the whole point of y'all being here? It's because you felt like someone was killed for reasons that weren't justified. But now this girl has killed a pregnant mom and a baby and a guy who was maybe innocent. Yeah, I guess. F them, right? They made the decision. Tommy, Jesse preparing to leave. They need to go back to Jackson in the morning when the storm dies down. He's going to pack up the bags. Ellie and Jesse are talking about the situation at hand. And there's a situation going on in another room. And this is just me after seeing it after one time. How did Abby find their location? Abby finds them. I don't know where Dena is, but she's not in the room with them. But as they run into this room, Abby shoots Jesse in the face. And kills him. I mean, just shot him in the face. There's no and ifs or buts about it. He's dead. She has Tommy at gunpoint. Wait, let me say it again. She has Tommy at gunpoint. This is the same guy that in this episode was able to fend off, I don't know how many guys or girls or wolves, but Abby was able to take him down. We don't know how. And she tells her, I should have just killed you. And Ellie's like, no, don't spare him. It's me you wanted. I'm the reason your dad's dead. And she points the gun at her, and we hear a gunshot, and it fades to black. Before we get to the last scene, if you see enough shows, you see enough movies, you see enough stories, read enough stories, she didn't shoot Ellie. I mean, we all know that. We could even if she did shoot Ellie, she's not dead. She probably shot her in the arm, shot her in the leg, or next time we see them in 2049, it's gonna have another perspective of Dena probably came in, shot her after she, everything is gonna be copacetic. Let me just say that now. But the question is, what happens to Tommy, right? There's gunshot, Tommy gets shot. I don't know. So I just want to put that out there. I don't think Ellie's dead. I don't think Ellie's been compromised. A matter of fact, like I said, I think Dena probably is the gunshot that we probably hear. She shoots him, kills him, and then we fade to black. We go to this scene here where Abby's asleep, and I'm gonna bring this up now because it's been brought up a couple times in live chat. And this is just my interpretation. Some people, and not saying that they were definitive about this, but they question, like, wait a minute, are we led to believe that that was all a dream? That Abby dreamt what just happened, what we just witnessed? It's a reasonable question because the way that it was edited and cut together, it's not a stretch to think that is a logical interpretation of the scene. Me personally, I don't think that's how the scene's meant to be read. I think that what we witnessed happened in real time. What we're doing is Manny comes in the room, tells Abby that Isaac wants to see her. And mind you, last time we heard Abby in the same conversation, Abby's been missing for It sounded like she was missing for a while, but I guess that's not the case because this is, as we see, day one is the same day one that Ellie and Dena arrived to Seattle. We'll go back and we're going to tell you what Abby's been doing the last 3 days. Sit on that for the next 94 months. I consider this to be not only a bad episode of television, put aside finale just for now, just a singular episode of television. This was a bad episode of TV on many levels. Placement of where things were, how the show seemed more focused on setting up a season 3 that has not been set up to a degree that makes me excited based on what we got this season. But it's not only a bad episode of television, just from a singular television episode, a 50-minute episode, probably 46 if we're being honest, take away credits. Look at a finale. A finale is supposed to not only conclude a singular story that you're telling for a singular season of television, but also it is fair to set up things for what's to come, season 3 and beyond, because they did announce they're going to split this second game into a 3-arc season. So I get you set up things, but what went wrong with this finale? What went wrong with this season of television? I think the creators and the writers and the showrunners wanted to piss us off. I don't know, man. This was a very frustrating season of television. So quick thoughts on the finale before I go into my the live discussion and continue the discussion. Quick thoughts on the finale. I thought it was bad. Minus a good, the production value, minus 1 or 2 scenes from a performance standpoint. Minus that, I thought it was a really bad episode of television. I thought it was a terrible finale of a season. And will I watch season 3? Yes. Curiosity. Yes. I spent, 17 episodes into the show so far. I got, as they say, I got skin in the game, and I'm curious to know where it all lands. And I'm curious to see. I like a comeback story because as you can tell, I think this was a pretty terribly handled season. So I like to see people win. I like to see people get their comeback and get back to the top of the game of what season 1 was. So I will be back for season 3. Take your time. Why are we rushing through what I understand to be such a pivotal part of Ellie's story is this section that we were just focused on. And this took place in a matter of 4 episodes in such a way that felt lazy. It felt rushed and felt extremely underwhelming. All that being said, season 3, again, 2063, the year of our Lord, we will be getting season 3. And apparently it's going to be focused on Abby. And I love Caitlin Devers. I think she's an incredible actress. I am curious, not excited, curious to know this other perspective of Abby, day 1 of what she's been doing this whole time. Curious, not necessarily excited, but curious to know who is this prophet? Where did this war stem from of those Seraphites and the wolves? So, I'll be 60, 63, 64 years old when the next season comes out. By then, I'm pretty sure we'll be watching TVs with a little USB chip in our necks. So I will see you all then. Like, share, comment, consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.